The emperor and I married young, but as we reached middle age, he openly favored his consort, showing me not a shred of respect. When the crown prince insisted on marrying a commoner, I tried to stop him, and he began to resent me, his own mother. I died in despair, only to open my eyes and find myself back in the past. Given a second chance, I came to understand one thing: I should just live for myself. The emperor dotes on his consort? Let him. It's not my empire to rule. The crown prince wants to marry a commoner? Let him. The heir's seat isn't mine to protect. I decided not to meddle in these things anymore. But they all came to regret it. 1. Mother. I am fond of Lady Lu. I love and respect her, and wish to marry her as my rightful wife.
Emma.
Then marry her. Even if you object, what? The crown prince faltered, then suddenly looked up. If you want to marry her, go ahead. I repeated it, and this time he heard me clearly, though he couldn't believe it. Mother? I've thought it through. You're grown now. It's time you made your own decisions. I stood up, looking at his still young and innocent face. This version of him hadn't yet become the ungrateful son he was in the last life. But so what? From now on, you'll make your own choices.
2.
After the crown prince left, silence fell over Cunning Palace. Everyone assumed I was angry with him. Your Grace, the crown prince is still young and immature. Once he's older, he'll understand that you're acting in his best interest. Qing Man spoke softly. I turned my head and saw the worry in her eyes. Qing Man was my maidservant, part of my dowry. When I was 6, Mother brought her into my quarters. By now, she had been with me for 30 years. In my last life, she died trying to protect me. Qing Man, do you think the crown prince would cast aside his mother for a woman? I asked lightly, but she was visibly shocked. How could your grace think such a thing? The crown prince is your flesh and blood. How could he be so unfilial? Oh, you think he wouldn't? Of course not, Qing Man said firmly. She hesitated, then added, there's no need to worry. The crown prince is just at the age where love starts to bloom. It's not surprising he's infatuated with Lady Lu. Give it some time, and the obsession will pass. I sighed and shook my head. Qing Man was about to speak again when the head palace maid, Yunxiang, rushed in. Your Grace, I just came from the Ministry of Internal Affairs. I found out that Consort Ro had someone take the tribute gifted by the Kingdom of Kiela. The Kingdom of Kiela was a small state, but it was known for a unique embroidery technique. This time, they had sent 2 embroidered folding screens, one with a dragon, one with a phoenix, clearly meant for the imperial couple. Consort Ro taking them so blatantly was nothing short of a public challenge to me, the Empress. Naturally, I had to respond. In my past life, I did. I had just quarreled with the crown prince and was already upset. Hearing the news only made me angrier, and I immediately sent someone to confront her. But at that moment, the emperor was with Consort Ro in her palace, which meant that her taking the tribute had his tacit approval, or perhaps his explicit permission. So, in the end, my attempt at discipline became a joke. Now, seeing the indignation on Yunxiang's face, I smiled. There's no need to panic. Go fetch the harmony of dragon and phoenix that the Grand Empress Dowager once gifted me. She froze. Qing Man looked both confused and uneasy. Your Grace? I remember she said back then that harmony between Emperor and Empress was a blessing to the palace. Consort Ro is stunning and beloved by His Majesty. Though she holds no formal title, she already enjoys the rights of a wife. In that case, let us gift her the harmony of dragon and phoenix. Before I even finished speaking, both Qing Man and Yunxiang dropped to their knees. I rose and walked over to Yunxiang. You'll deliver it yourself. Make sure to relay my words to His Majesty, word for word. 3. The harmony of dragon and phoenix was actually 2 jade carvings. One of a dragon, one of a phoenix, each holding a jade pendant in its mouth. They were crafted a century ago by a master artisan and were part of the Grand Empress Dowager's dowry. After our wedding, on the second day when we paid our respects and served tea, She gave them to me and Gu Linen. She personally placed the jade pendants around our necks and said earnestly, "You two grew up together. Your bond runs deep. May you be like dragon and phoenix in harmony. Do not repeat the tragedy of the late emperor and empress." The former emperor and empress had a loveless marriage that left both court and harem in constant unrest, a matter that weighed heavily on the Grand Empress Dowager's heart. Back then, Gu Linen had replied with confidence, "Grandmother, don't worry. Ching Ching and I are a perfect match. We'll be a shining example of an imperial couple." He had reason to be confident. I had been chosen by the Grand Empress Dowager at the age of 7 and brought to the palace to grow up alongside Gu Linen. We truly had feelings for each other. So when he said those words, I believed him. Once he took the throne, he was busy with state affairs and had little time for the harem, so things remained peaceful. Not long after, I gave birth to a healthy crown prince. We really did have a loving relationship for a time, but people change. Once he got a firm grip on politics, his attention turned elsewhere. One beauty after another entered the harem, and our son was no longer the only child. Of course, I felt jealousy. But as Empress, the mother of the nation, I had to remain dignified and composed. As the crown prince grew older, I began to focus all my energy on him. Perhaps that was when I went wrong. Or maybe it started even earlier. In the end, I couldn't hold on to either my husband or my son. "Your Grace, what are you planning? Please don't go against His Majesty over this." Qingmon's trembling voice pulled me out of my thoughts. Following her gaze, I looked down and realized I had crushed the jade pendant in my hand. I let out a soft laugh and released my grip. In the end, only you have remained truly loyal to me. Qingman frowned, confused. Consort Ro's glory is fleeting. Why go to such lengths to compete with her? There are other ways to deal with her. If you act like this, it'll only anger His Majesty. You're mistaken, Qingman. I used a handkerchief to wipe the shards from my fingers. Consort Ro's glory wasn't fleeting. She was the one who lasted until the end. Besides, my bond with His Majesty is like this jade. Shattered. No matter how you try to mend it, it'll never be the same again. And in this life, I never planned on restoring it. Outrageous. A voice filled with fury rang out. I turned, and there stood Gu Linen, face dark, at the doorway. 4. He strode in angrily, and when he saw the shattered jade on the table, his face darkened further. "Empress, what is the meaning of this?" Qingmen quickly moved to bow, but I stopped her with a gesture and signaled for her to leave. "It's been a long time since I spoke with His Majesty properly. All of you leave us." Qingman left with visible concern, but the attendants Gu Linen brought didn't budge. I gave a cold laugh. So it seems I really am an empress in name only. My words carry no weight at all. Gu Linen turned to see that the servants hadn't moved, and his face grew even uglier. "Leave us. All of you." Only the two of us remained in the hall. I raised my eyes and gave him a good look. At this point, he was still uninjured, and in his prime, vigorous and confident. "Had your fill of looking?" He sat down beside me, glancing at the shattered jade on the table. His tone was flat, but the anger beneath was still audible. "What kind of empress are you? Consort Ro is weak and timid, and yet you sent your maid with such aggression, bearing the harmony of dragon and phoenix, and delivered that speech. If I hadn't been at Qixing Palace, who knows how badly she'd have been frightened." That's all he had to say? I suddenly laughed. "Gu Linen, being your empress is utterly meaningless." He looked at me in surprise. I met his gaze directly, without flinching. "You were standing at the door just now. Didn't you hear what I said?" How could he not have heard? He definitely did. But even after hearing it, he said nothing about it. Every word he spoke was to defend Consort Ro. "What? Are you trying to use grandmother to threaten me now?" He laughed in fury and pointed at the broken jade on the table. "Jiang Qin, is this all you're capable of?" "Yes, this is all I'm capable of." Gu Linen froze. He must have expected me to back down as I always had. to yield for the sake of the crown prince, to flatter him, to obey him. But this time I didn't. If I were truly incapable, would the Grand Empress Dowager have chosen me to enter the palace? Your talents are no better than the late emperor's. Had they chosen someone too competent, we might have ended up with another Empress Xiao Zhao. Jiang Qin. Which part of what I said was false? You've been emperor too long. Can't handle hearing the truth anymore? Gu Linen shot to his feet. I have no desire to argue with a petty woman. For her insolent words, the Empress is to be confined for 3 months. He flung his sleeve and turned to leave. Wait. I stood and swept the remaining jade shards onto the floor. This is our relationship. Now do you hear me clearly?
5.
I was confined, as expected. That day, Gu Linen stormed off and officially issued a decree, stating that I had fallen short in virtue and needed to reflect on my conduct. In the past, a punishment like this would have felt devastating. But now, with my heart in a different place, it didn't seem like a big deal. I spent my days peacefully in Cunning Palace. All court affairs were handed off to Consort Row. I passed the time reading storybooks and checking inventory, relaxed and content. Even though I was confined, news from outside still reached me. Under normal circumstances, after my punishment, the Crown Prince should have kept his head down and behaved. But with the matter of selecting his future wife brought to the table, he had no choice but to speak the truth. He refused to marry a minister's daughter, insisting only on that Lady Lu. The outcome was predictable. The emperor scolded him in the study, and it quickly spread through both the inner palace and the court. The very next day, the crown prince came to Cunning Palace. Hearing he was seeking an audience surprised me slightly. But the more I thought about it, the less surprised I was. I had always been the one mediating between father and son. He never knew how to handle Gu Linen on his own. Now that I no longer took the initiative, naturally, he had to come himself. What I didn't expect was for him to start with a confrontation. Mother, what did you do to make father so furious? At the time, I was reclining on a chaise, listening to Qing Man read a story aloud. I couldn't help but laugh. Aren't you worried about your Lady Lu anymore? The crown prince fell silent for a moment, then composed himself. Father says you've lost your virtue. Now that everyone knows, you should be following proper decorum and seek His Majesty's forgiveness. Qingman's hand tightened around the book. I turned and saw her lips pressed together. The other day I told her the crown prince was beyond saving, and she hadn't believed me. Now he had come all this way and hadn't spoken a single word of concern. If she still didn't believe it, she would now. If you're so worried I'll damage your standing as crown prince, why not get yourself another mother? Consort Row is quite favored. I think she'd make a good candidate. The crown prince frowned. Mother, this isn't the time for sarcasm. That wasn't sarcasm. I sat upright and looked him straight in the eye. That was the truth. You want a mother like Consort Row, one who's favored, who can influence your father's decisions, who's gentle and treats you well. Isn't that right? He didn't reply, but he didn't deny it either. Qing Man could no longer hold back. She hurled the book at him. You, Qing Man. I stopped her. It's all right. I'll just pretend I never had this son. Your Grace. I turned back to the crown prince. He was holding the book, looking at us. Linger, our bond is too shallow. We simply weren't meant to be mother and son. From now on, you're on your own. The silence in the hall was suffocating. The crown prince opened his mouth, closed it again, and said nothing. He placed the book on the table, avoided my eyes, and walked out. Once his figure disappeared, I turned to Qing Man and said, "If he comes again, don't let him in." Qing Man still looked upset but hesitated upon hearing my words. Your Grace, he's still your only child. So what? I was unmoved. There's one thing this palace has in abundance. It's children. 6. After Gu Linen took full control of the court, he developed a keen obsession with collecting beauties. He didn't stop until he found Consort Row, an absolute stunner. Before she entered the palace, there were already 16 princes and 12 princesses. Indeed, children were not in short supply. Especially since most of their mothers were of low rank, adopting one under my name wouldn't be difficult. But I was waiting to see if the person I wanted would appear at the mid-autumn banquet, just like in my previous life. But before that day even came, Consort Ro couldn't sit still. Though she had enjoyed favor, she'd never held real power. Now that I had voluntarily let go of palace affairs and she had finally gotten a taste, she wasn't about to give it up. Seeing that my confinement was nearly over, she hurried to smear me. Your Grace, His Majesty has summoned you to Qixiang Palace. Just as I finished speaking with Qingman, Yunxiang came in to report. Looking at her calm, measured face, I sighed inwardly. Of the maids who entered the palace with me, only Qingman had stayed. The others had all married off. Yunxiang was someone I'd trained later on, and I had once valued her highly. If not for the memories from my past life, who would have guessed she was a traitor? Qingman pretended not to know anything and asked, "Did you hear anything else?" Nothing unusual. So, they were going all the way with this. I shook my head slightly and signaled to Qingman to stop probing. Leaving Yunxiang in Cunning Palace to give her the chance to act, I took Qingman and several attendants and headed to Qixiang Palace. As soon as I entered, I saw concubine Ru kneeling outside the room. Her eyes were red, as if she'd been crying. When she noticed me, she immediately averted her gaze. I ignored her and walked straight inside. Consort Ro was lying on the bed, and Gu Linen was holding her hand, leaning over to whisper sweetly to her, completely wrapped up in their affection. "What a loving couple," I remarked. At the sound of my voice, Consort Ro flinched like a frightened rabbit and instantly tried to sit up. Gu Linen stopped her and turned to me, his displeasure clear the moment he saw I hadn't bowed and simply sat down. "You clearly have no intention of repenting. You've completely forgotten palace etiquette." "Etiquette?" I raised an eyebrow. "Compared to you favoring your concubine and slighting your wife, what's that worth?" "Jiang Qin, there's no need to shout. This room's not that big, we can all hear you just fine." The chief eunuch, Jiang Fushen, quickly shot a look around. All the palace attendants filed out, except him and Qingman. Gu Linen suddenly stood. Consort Ro clung to his sleeve. "Your Majesty, please speak calmly with Her Grace. Don't get angry. I would be so worried." Her voice was soft and sticky, like water clinging to honey. It made my skin crawl. But Gu Linen liked that sort of thing. He actually swallowed his anger. I'd seen this scene too many times before, but it still irritated me. If you knew concubine Ru was trying to harm Roer, why didn't you stop her? It wasn't just a harem squabble, she's finally pregnant. This concerns the imperial bloodline. You're the Empress. That did catch me off guard. According to the evidence Qingman found, it should have appeared as if I had instructed concubine Ru to harm Consort Ro. Yet Gu Linen's tone implied I hadn't acted, just turned a blind eye. Could Consort Ro really be so incompetent that she failed even at framing someone? But judging by the tactics she used in our past life, she wasn't a fool. While I was lost in thought, Gu Linen shifted the subject to the crown prince. "Or is it that you're afraid Roer is carrying a prince who might threaten the crown prince's position?" That was a truly offensive accusation. Was it me he looked down on, or the crown prince? The crown prince may be weak, but he's not so insecure that he fears a sibling 16 years younger, still in the womb, with an unknown gender. I glanced at Consort Ro's belly. It was still completely flat. She wasn't even showing. Besides, whether the child will even survive is still uncertain. This time, Consort Ro was genuinely shaken. Her reaction was far more real than before. "Your Grace, what do you mean by that?" "Your Majesty, Gu Linen patted her hand, though his eyes remained on me. "Don't scare her." That scared her. I let out a cold laugh. "If she's that easily frightened, you still want to make her Empress?" Gu Linen's face darkened. Consort Ro quickly chimed in. "Your Grace, you misunderstand. I only wish to stay by His Majesty's side and serve him. I have no desire for any title. I would never compete with you." "Oh, no desire for a title." I looked at Gu Linen's face, his expression was already softening. I asked sincerely. She says that, and you just believe her? At that, both of them froze ever so slightly. I see. I understand now. Consort Ro wants to coax you, and you know it's all a lie, yet you still fall for it. Sometimes, words are just words. You're the emperor, you should know this isn't just about the harem anymore. This affects your decisions in court. You're the emperor. I threw his words back at him. As expected, it made him angry again. He said calmly, listening. If I'd counted correctly, Jiang Fushan's apprentice should be arriving about now. Sure enough, before he could say much more, someone came in to report. I stood and quickly explained, I've already looked into it. One of my maids turned traitor and colluded with concubine Ru. Jiang Fushan's apprentice caught her red-handed at Cunning Palace. You can question her yourself. Oh, and be sure to assign more attendants to your precious consort. If this happens a few more times, that baby really won't make it. I reached the door, then paused, and added one last thing. You won't find another concubine that pretty to charm you again. Jiang Qin, stop right there. Gu Linen was fuming. I didn't stop. I didn't even look back. If you want to depose the Empress, do as you please. I knew this line would infuriate him even more, because neither I nor the Crown Prince had reached the end of our rope. Right now, he couldn't afford to get rid of either of us. 7. I used to endure everything for the Crown Prince. I loved him deeply and protected him fiercely, which naturally made me lower myself before Gu Linen. And growing up in the palace under the Grand Empress Dowager's watch, she deliberately shaped me into a gentle and virtuous empress, so Gu Linen and I rarely had harsh conflicts. But in truth, I didn't have to yield to him. My father, Zhang Yiheng, was a man of both letters and arms, top-ranked in the imperial exams and a general who fought off the northern D tribes. Though our family lacked noble lineage, he earned a marquis title through merit. He adored my mother and was devoted only to her. Even though she became frail after giving birth to me, he never once mentioned taking a concubine. Our household was simple, loving, completely different from the cold grandeur of Empress Xiao Zhao's life. The Grand Empress Dowager probably had that in mind when she chose me. But all of that was when my mother was still alive. After she passed, Zhang Yiheng fell into a long period of despair. When he woke up again, it was as if he had become a different person. He married a second wife and had 2 sons. He no longer cared for me. All he valued was the crown prince and power. When he set his sights on authority, Gu Linen was no match for him. But he always maintained a humble appearance, which kept Gu Linen from viewing him as a true threat. In my previous life, it wasn't until his death that Gu Linen dared to depose the crown prince. And then me. If he hadn't died, Gu Linen wouldn't have been able to touch us. I had been foolish. I thought his drastic change meant he no longer cared for me, only his sons. So I never considered leaning on him. But now I understand. Even if he resented me for Mother's death, we were still on the same side. No matter how he felt, he would never truly harm me. After all, I was my mother's only child. He might have stood by coldly, watching me suffer, but he wouldn't let me be destroyed. Now that I've seen things clearly, I'm no longer afraid. And I'm done with patience. What I didn't expect was that Gu Linen was the one who started acting strange. The Emperor wants me to organize the mid-autumn banquet? I put down the storybook and stared at Jiang Fushan, who stood before me with utmost respect. It had only been a day. Why had Gu Linen suddenly changed his tune and sent Jiang Fushan to deliver this message? His Majesty said that all these years, you've handled every palace affair, big or small, with utmost precision. And trusting you with the mid-autumn banquet puts his mind at ease. Jiang Fushan's words were pleasant, but I knew this wasn't something Gu Linen would ever say. What? He doesn't trust Consort Ro's abilities anymore? Consort Ro has never managed palace matters, and now that she's carrying a royal child, naturally. So, this is what they were waiting for. I cut him off and slammed the book onto the table. The power in my hands. He takes it when he wants, gives it back when it suits him. If I refuse to organize it, what can he do?
8.
As expected, Gulinin couldn't do a thing. The matter was left unresolved. He assigned a few older court ladies to assist Consort Ro with the banquet preparations. He would rather do that than hand the power to any of the other high-ranking consorts. Most likely, it was Consort Ro herself who didn't want to give it up. I couldn't be bothered. I barely listened and turned my attention elsewhere. I summoned the palace's best embroidery girls and had them work day and night to make me a new gown, paired with the most exquisite jewelry. When the night of the family banquet came, I arrived in full splendor. Though I was nearing 40, I had taken good care of myself. Dressed like this, regal and radiant, I easily became the most eye-catching person in the room, outshining even a beauty like Consort Ro. I was very pleased. That is, until I caught the look of admiration in Gulinin's eyes. As if I didn't dress for him. I raised my cup, annoyed. But the moment I brought it close, something seemed off. Not because I was skilled in medicine, this scent was so wrong anyone with a nose could smell it. Could it be Consort Ro had been targeted? I glanced down the table and saw her face pale, her expression uneasy. Lady Li is bleeding. A commotion rose from below. Hearing that, I turned to Qing Man. Who is Lady Li? His Majesty recently elevated a few new beauties. Lady Li is one of them. A newly favored consort? Wasn't Gulinin supposed to dote solely on Consort Ro? There had been no Lady Li in my past life, and the palace banquet had not gone like this. I felt a bit puzzled, but quickly let it go. A new life wouldn't unfold exactly like the old one. So I simply watched Gulinin send someone to fetch the imperial physician. Who would have guessed, before he even finished speaking, Consort Ro fainted too. Well then, the banquet hadn't even begun, and 2 had already collapsed. Not that it had anything to do with me. I hadn't touched a thing,
he said calmly, utterly unfazed.
But then I noticed Gulinin didn't even frown, as if the one who fainted wasn't his long-time favorite consort. Aren't you going to check on your precious darling? I couldn't help but jab. He said nothing. Instead, he turned and looked at me. You're acting like how you were in Yanxi Palace. Yanxi Palace, where I lived before marrying Gulinin. What nonsense. That was 20 years ago. Nothing's the same now. He chuckled softly. You haven't changed a bit. Still radiant. Especially tonight. Dressed like this. You reminded me of our wedding day. That line lingered in my mind before I realized. He thought I dressed like this to reminisce or to reconcile with him. Sure enough, his expression softened. He even reached out to take my hand.
Disgusting.
I slapped his hand away with a cold face. You dare bring up our wedding? On our wedding day, I never imagined that one day you'd have 3,000 women in your harem, dozens of children, and still publicly humiliate me again and again for the sake of a concubine. I stood, ready to leave. But my steps halted. He had grabbed my sleeve. His voice dropped, seething. Jiang Qin. I yanked my arm back forcefully. My hair ornament swayed, but I didn't care about decorum anymore. The guests below sensed something was wrong and all fell silent, watching me leave the grand hall. Your Grace, are you? No need to worry. If he loses face, that's his business. As for mine, thinking of everything I'd endured, I closed my eyes and took a deep breath to calm the rising emotions. My dignity was stripped from me long ago. What's one more time?
9.
Gulinin chased after me and waved everyone else away. His face held a thin layer of anger. Jiang Qin, I've already compromised. Don't be so ungrateful. I stared at him, speechless for a moment. He's been emperor for too long, just saying a few softer words that barely count, and he already thinks he's being generous. You are the Empress. Your son is the crown prince. Your father holds great power in court. What more do you want? The moment he brought up Jiang Yiheng, I froze. Even though my father held high power later on, he always stayed measured. Gulinin had never shown discontent toward him. Could it be? Is it because of my father that you've distanced yourself from me? That you started filling the harem, fathering so many children, and showering Consort Ro with affection? As I said this, the words caught in my throat. What a joke. Who would actually believe that? But Gu Linen was straightforward.
No.
The Marquis of Chongping is capable and reliable. He's helped me tremendously with state affairs. As for taking consorts, I am the Emperor. What's strange about having 3,000 in my harem? Having many sons has always been seen as a blessing. Then what exactly is it that you're resentful about? He didn't try to hide it. He laid his thoughts bare, and they were more unexpected than anything. So now all of this is my fault. He sighed, as though burdened by my ignorance, and began to justify. The Marquis of Chongping holds power in court, and because he's your father, I've never challenged him too much. As for Consort Ro, no matter how much I favor her, she's just a concubine. You're the one always targeting her. Her family background is ordinary, she's gentle and easy to bully. If I don't protect her a bit, how could she survive the palace? You're the Empress. You should be more magnanimous. And the Crown Prince. Yes, he's lacking in ability, but I never said I would depose him. Instead, I've appointed great ministers to teach him. I want him to improve. Jiang Qin, after all I've done for you, isn't that enough? He spoke with sincerity, as though everything he'd done was for my sake. But with each word, my heart turned colder. In our youth, he did treat me sincerely. Later, we drifted apart, and in my past life, when things ended as cruelly as they did, I assumed power had simply changed him, that it had made him heartless. But now I realized in his eyes, all of this was already him showing me favor. He believed he hadn't been indifferent, that he had given me all the respect and affection I deserved, and that I, instead of being grateful, had become resentful. How absurd. How disgusting. You don't need to justify anything. I already said the other day, what's between us is like that shattered jade. From now on, whatever you decide to do with the Marquis of Chongping or the Crown Prince, don't use me as an excuse. I, Jiang Qin, am unworthy of such noble affection.
10.
Gu Linen pressed his lips together, frowning deeply. After a moment, he gave a cold laugh.
Fine.
Fine. Just then, a eunuch rushed out from the hall and whispered something into Jiang Fushin's ear. His face paled, and he looked toward Gu Linen, hesitating. Speak. Your Majesty, the princes and princesses who ate at the banquet are all experiencing severe diarrhea. Gu Linen's expression didn't change at first. He probably thought only a few children had gotten sick. But Jiang Fushin continued. Not just those at the main table. Everyone who ate from the banquet spread is now feeling ill. Only then did Gu Linen take it seriously. I was also startled. Didn't that mean even the 9th princess was affected? There were many children in the palace, and it was customary for the younger ones to sit together. Since the banquet had been delayed, and children get hungry easily, once Gu Linen and I left, they likely began eating. Our argument was set aside as we headed together to the rear hall. When we arrived, we saw the Crown Prince speaking with the imperial physicians. When he saw us, he quickly reported. The doctors have examined everyone. Though the younger princes and princesses ate problematic pastries, they didn't eat much. It's not serious. With proper rest, they'll recover. Gu Linen changed course immediately and walked straight into Consort Ro's room. The Crown Prince's expression darkened. Wipe that look off your face, I said, unable to help myself. He was being far too obvious. Your father has favored Consort Ro for years. Why act surprised now? He toned it down but muttered under his breath. But this is over 10 of his children. Does one Consort Ro outweigh them all? He didn't even spare them a glance. I thought to myself, of course she outweighs them. That's not even the full count. Add in your siblings and yourself too. He was about to say more when a piercing scream came from inside, followed by sobbing. I immediately recognized Consort Ro's voice. So dramatic, it must mean she lost the child. Sure enough, the physician already warned us that this pregnancy was at risk, someone confirmed. To be honest, with how disastrous the banquet was, losing the child might actually work in Consort Ro's favor. It would stir Gu Linen's pity, and she could blame the failed banquet on her health instead. But that was Gu Linen's problem now. I no longer cared. I turned and went to where the princesses were resting. This time, the injured girls ranged from 3 to 10 years old. Some had gone to change clothes, and only 5 remained in the room. 2 were lying in bed, while the other 3 sat on a couch. As I entered, the 3 sitting girls immediately stood. I glanced at them. The 9th princess stood in the middle and bowed along with the others. After I told them to rise, she stood quietly, head lowered, calm and composed. My heart sank. So the 9th princess was unharmed, which meant the person I was waiting for never came. 11. Her name was Zhao Rua. She came from another world. In my previous life, the 9th princess fell during the mid-autumn banquet, hit her head, and fainted. When she woke again, it was Zhao Rua who had taken over her body. She was new to this world and kept a low profile. Naturally, I didn't notice her at first. We truly met in Yuhua Palace. By then, I had been deposed and reduced to a commoner. She, too, had fallen from favor, having tried to rally the princes and princesses against Consort Row, only to make one wrong move and be stripped of everything by Gu Linen. In that cramped little palace, we opened up to each other and became close friends. She told me about her world, a beautiful, vibrant world full of wonder. "What a pity," she once said, "that Consort Row is just a fake White Lotus." Even after becoming the Empress Dowager, she still dressed like she was in mourning every day. I bet when you were Empress, you never wore anything so depressing. Back then, I had nothing, dressed in coarse linen and humiliated by Consort Row at every turn.
She never got to see me at my best.
This time, I dressed beautifully, but she wasn't here anymore. Mother? Perhaps I had been staring at the 9th princess for too long. She cautiously looked up and met my gaze. Startled, she quickly lowered her head and spoke nervously. Her eyes were bright, filled with innocence. Forget it. If such a kind girl managed to live on, wasn't that also a kind of blessing? 12. As for the mess at the mid-autumn banquet, Gu Linen quickly found a few scapegoats to take the fall and force the matter to rest. Things between us remained tense, but I did take back full control of the palace. Since Zhao Rua was gone, it was time for me to think about the next step. Among the 15 princes, which one should I adopt as my son? This required careful observation. As for the crown prince, I had completely set him aside. And yet, he came to Cunning Palace again today. But I'd already given orders to stop him at the door, and so he didn't get in. The crown prince is probably here because His Majesty agreed to let him marry Lady Lu. Oh, Gu Linen actually agreed? The imperial edict has just been issued. But now Lady Lu's status has been changed. She's been declared the great-granddaughter of Master Gudao. I sat up straighter. Master Gudao? That's from father's side, isn't it? Master Gudao was an elderly former imperial tutor who had retired to teach and had countless respected students across the nation. When Jiang Yiheng was young, he'd once debated philosophy with him. The two were good friends, despite the age gap. Lady Lu, born to a farming family, was suddenly named Master Gudao's great-granddaughter? That had to be father's doing. That Jiang Yiheng could alter someone's identity didn't surprise me. What did surprise me was, how did the crown prince convince him? Lady Lu had no background, no power, nothing that would benefit the crown prince. Jiang Yiheng should have objected. I summoned someone to bring the crown prince to me. It wasn't until the sun had nearly set that he finally arrived, walking slowly, his expression cold. One look and I knew he was angry, just like Gu Linen. I wasn't about to humor him. I asked directly, "Your grandfather agreed to let you marry Lady Lu?" At first, he refused to speak. I pressed him a few times before he finally relented, sulking as he explained. After being scolded by Gu Linen and snubbed by me, he had gone to Jiang Yiheng in desperation. At first, Jiang Yiheng refused. But the crown prince persuaded him by bringing up my mother, how she too came from a humble background, yet was deeply loved and respected by Jiang Yiheng. And besides, I am the crown prince. Why must I marry someone with noble lineage? What if she turns out to be another Empress Xiao Zhao? Grandfather thought about what I said and agreed. He even told me to learn from him and treat my future crown princess well. Something felt wrong. Jiang Yiheng was a master of court politics. How could he be moved by such childish words? The crown prince was just a pawn in his political game. He never truly cared for him, so why agree so easily? And why was the wedding being arranged so hastily? This. The crown prince turned his face away, embarrassed. Lady Lu is already carrying my child.
What?
They had already? I frowned deeply. This was too reckless. How could Jiang Yiheng have agreed to this? Something didn't add up. There had to be something I didn't know. But no matter how I investigated, I couldn't find anything suspicious. After some thought, I decided to look into Lady Lu herself. Their engagement had been formally announced, and although it wasn't proper for her to enter the palace yet, I summoned her quietly under the title of the eldest princess. Yet the palace attendants failed to bring her to Cunning Palace. Your Grace, Lady Lu, went to Qixing Palace. 13. I immediately rose and headed to Qixing Palace. I had summoned her to the palace in secret. How did Consort Ro find out? Unless there was some trap waiting for me. When I arrived, the palace maid stopped me, looking troubled. Her ladyship is unwell and not receiving guests. Before I could speak, Qingman gestured behind her, and the senior maid moved to detain them. I walked straight in and saw Consort Ro lying in bed. Beside her sat a girl I didn't recognize. Your Grace, I'm not feeling well and unable to greet you properly, Consort Ro said, not bothering to move, her voice cloyingly sweet and utterly fake. The unfamiliar girl stood up and gave a proper curtsy. This humble girl is Ning Ruoxing. Greetings to your Grace, the Empress. So this was Lady Lu, now renamed Ning Ruoxing, the great-granddaughter of Master Gudao. I glanced at the bowl by her side. Had she just been feeding medicine to Consort Ro? They were that close already? The eldest princess invited me to the palace, but I happened to run into His Highness at the gate. He said Consort Ro has always treated him kindly and suggested I come greet her first. Your Grace, you don't mind that I didn't greet you before visiting her ladyship, do you? She smiled brightly, as if completely unaware that her words were lighting a fuse. At that, Consort Ro couldn't suppress the smug smile tugging at her lips. She raised a handkerchief and gave a dainty little cough, pretending to be delicate. I ignored the smugness in her eyes and asked Ning Ruoxing directly, so the crown prince told you to come here? She nodded.
Yes.
Wonderful. I thought this was another one of Consort Ro's petty plays. Turns out it was that idiot crown prince. He must have been afraid I'd make trouble for Ning Ruoxing, so he sent her right into a snake pit. Absolutely foolish. And she's carrying his child, yet he delivers her straight to his biggest rival. Her ladyship truly is kind. Though still ill, she insisted on preparing His Highness's favorite, barbecued pork, to welcome me. Ning Ruoxing's tone was odd, but I assumed she was playing along with Consort Ro to irritate me. And I'd rushed here in concern? Clearly, I was the one being ridiculous. If she wasn't afraid her pregnancy might be affected, then by all means, let her eat. Consort Ro's complexion looks quite rosy. I expect you'll recover soon. His Majesty praises your calligraphy. With the new year approaching, you should copy some scriptures to offer to the Grand Empress Dowager. Consort Ro's smile froze.
I'm afraid.
You can do it. I cut her off smoothly. Your devotion to the Grand Empress Dowager is well known. I had invoked filial piety. With Gu Linen not present, she had no choice but to agree. But Ning Ruoxing chimed in again. Why doesn't your Grace stay and join us for some barbecued pork? Another fool. Earlier she was all passive-aggressive. I thought she might be smarter than the crown prince. I couldn't be bothered. I stood and turned to leave, sending off her Grace, the Empress. Such a shame, her Grace really doesn't like barbecued pork. The first line she said loud and clear. The second she mumbled, just quiet enough for me to hear. What is with this girl? Why is she so obsessed with barbecued pork? She even looks like a piece of pork. Suddenly, a rush of memories surged through me, and I froze in place. Could it be? I turned and rushed back into the room. You, get up. You're coming with me.
14.
The atmosphere on the way back was tense. I kept quiet, holding back the storm of emotions inside me. As soon as we reached Cunning Palace, I ordered everyone, including Qing Man, to leave. When only the two of us were left, Ning Ruoxing said, "You're seriously slow. I mentioned barbecued pork 3 times, and you still didn't get it. I thought maybe you'd forgotten everything from your past life. Forgotten the story I told you about the barbecue pork son." She spoke familiarly, sprawled lazily across the chaise with not a trace of courtly decorum. I'd had my suspicions, but still, I asked, "Xiao Rua?" "Bingo." She nodded vigorously. "Surprised? Last life I was your daughter. This time I'm your daughter-in-law." A strange calm settled over my heart. She was still here. That was enough. After the banter, she began to explain how she came to be reborn in Lady Lu's body. As I guessed, Jiang Yiheng was against the crown prince marrying a commoner. But seeing how besotted the crown prince was, and afraid it would become an obsession, he eventually relented. Outwardly, he agreed, but inwardly, he planned to kill her. The real Lady Lu had already died by his hand. I opened my eyes and was staring right into his. And I'll say this, your dad has a very sharp gaze. You woke up in front of him?
Yep.
Caught red-handed. He knew immediately I wasn't the original. My heart tightened. He didn't do anything to you, did he? Look at me, perfectly fine. Doesn't that answer your question? She sat up and grew serious. Actually, that's what I need to tell you. Did you know? Your mother was also from another world.
What?
And she came from a time before mine. So it was easy for me to pretend to be her hometown friend. Your dad's attitude flipped instantly. He turned all friendly. The words ran through my mind twice before I fully understood them. My mother was also from another world? And Jiang Yiheng had known all along? For a moment, I didn't know what to say. He's still trying to find a way to reach her. He wants to reunite with her in the modern world. But he doesn't know how. I've got him wrapped around my finger now. He thinks once I get enough political power, I'll help him find a time travel portal. He's not impressed with the crown prince, thinks he's useless, and he's planning to put my kid on the throne. When that happens, I'll be the regent empress. So that's what this was all about. You're really carrying Gu Ling's child? I am. Don't worry, he looks decent and he's young. Sleeping with him wasn't hard for me.
Yep.
She was still as unfiltered as ever. Relax, okay? This is your second life. I'm already on my third. You think we can't handle it? Her laughter was carefree and wild. And that little flicker of tension I'd held inside, it finally faded.
Yes.
Whether it's the crown prince, Gu Linen, or even Jiang Yiheng. In this life, none of them mattered to me anymore. 15. With Xiao Ruo around, everything progressed smoothly. Consort Ro was swiftly stripped of her favored status and officially demoted to a mere Chiron today. She had pushed the crown princess, causing her to go into early labor. Over the past months, everyone in the palace knew I had little affection for the crown prince and his wife. By contrast, Consort Ro had always appeared to be a loving mother figure to them. Now, with this incident, it was widely believed she had long harbored ill intent. Following Xiao Ruo's advice, I began to ease tensions between myself and Gu Linen. Not by humbling myself or acting submissive as before. Rather, I often took the upper hand with him. Xiao Ruo called it Sundra. At first, I resisted, but she said to treat it like training a dog. I gave it a try and found it quite entertaining. Day by day, he loved me more, while his attention toward Consort Ro faded. Look what you've done, taking in such a vicious woman. Had I said something like that in the past, he would have scolded me and stormed off. But now, he lowered his voice and pleaded, worried I might actually be angry. To think people could change so drastically, it was almost amusing. Comparing this life with the last made his current self look even more ridiculous. I kept him hanging, neither warm nor cold, until one day, I noticed a young eunuch approaching in haste, looking uneasy. I recognized him. He was the apprentice of the eunuch who had interrogated Consort Ro. Qing Man quietly excused herself. Gu Linen, still busy flattering me, noticed nothing. That night, I went to see Consort Ro. She looked gaunt. She'd never been plump, but now she was all skin and bones. Seeing me, the fragility vanished. She let out a bitter laugh. "You've won." I ignored the sting in her words. Instead, I asked, genuinely curious, "How did you figure out that the crown princess gave birth to a daughter?" The eunuch had come to report exactly that. Zhao Ruo had given birth to a girl, not twins. Our plan was that if it was a girl, we'd announce the birth of twins, claiming the imperial grandson was weak and needed to be raised outside the palace. Later, once things stabilized, we'd quietly announce his passing. But now that Consort Ro had exposed the lie, the eunuch suspected something between me and the crown princess and sent a new apprentice, someone unfamiliar, to report to me secretly. It was clever. Unfortunately for them, I'd seen that apprentice before, in my past life. Ning Ruoxing pretended to be close to me for months. Of course I saw through her. This kind of move is exactly her style. I figured it was Zhao Ruo's attitude toward women that made Consort Ro suspicious. She truly cared for women and believed female leadership was natural. She probably let some of that slip in conversation. You shouldn't celebrate too soon. Eunuch Qin has been in charge of the criminal court for years. You think he didn't leave backup plans? The Emperor will definitely find out. Oh, is that so? I smiled. Then you're in luck. We originally planned to wait a while longer before Gu Linen joined you. But if that's the case, you'll be seeing him much sooner. Consort Ro's eyes widened. You dare commit treason? I shook my head, recalling something she once said. Well, now you truly can be with him without a title. Of course, he won't have his title either.
16.
The head eunuch from the tribunal was indeed capable. Gu Linen found out. He stormed into Cunning Palace, ready to confront me. But as soon as he opened his mouth, he was seized and forced to take medicine. Jiang Qin, what are you doing? He clutched his throat in disbelief. Seeing Jiang Fushan's men dragged away, he closed his eyes and laughed coldly. Is the Jiang family rebelling now? How could we be? I smiled. The crown prince and the imperial granddaughter are my blood and yours too. He understood immediately. Given that, how could it be treason? But as emperor, his reign was truly over. He opened his mouth again, then shut it. After a long pause, he finally asked, "So, these past months, the reconciliation between us, was it all fake?" I hadn't expected him to ask that. Even with everything crashing down around him, what he cared about most wasn't power, but me. Suddenly, I understood even more what Zhao Ruo meant by training a dog. It was hilarious, truly hilarious. I asked Qing Man to bring out the harmony of dragon and phoenix. The two jade carvings were placed on the table. Mine was empty. His still held the jade pendant. I've told you this twice before, but you never took it seriously. So let me say it a third time. What's between us is like this jade, long shattered. I shoved the carving off the table. It smashed to pieces. Gu Linen trembled, lips twitching. All strength drained from his body. I won't kill you. I want you to live out your days in Yuhua Palace, as a common man, with Consort Ro, as an ordinary couple. 17. In the blink of an eye, 6 months had passed since the former emperor's death. On the day of his memorial, the new emperor insisted on becoming a monk to pray for his father's soul. He's decided? He knows I'm not really Lady Lu. Zhao Ruo replied without looking up from the memorial scroll. He also knows the real Lady Lu never wanted to marry him. The real Lady Lu was a farm girl from the outskirts of the capital. Her parents died young, and she survived by begging for food. The crown prince was infatuated with her, but she was too afraid of implicating her village to refuse him directly. The truth was, she never wanted to marry at all. Learning this shattered Gu Ling. He fell into despair for half a month, then abruptly announced his desire to take monastic vows. I naturally supported him. Under Jiang Yiheng's tutelage, Zhao Ruo had advanced rapidly. She now handled state affairs with ease. Whether the emperor stayed or left made little difference. Your father is setting sail soon to search for a time tunnel. Looks like he won't be coming back. Do you want to see him one last time? I paused. He's not coming back? He's over 60 now and still obsessed with your mother. This journey will take a long time. I doubt he'll return. But he still has sons. He didn't even care about you. What makes you think he'd care about those two tools he calls sons? I couldn't argue with that. After a long silence, I said, forget it. I won't see him. No need to look at that cold, indifferent face one more time. But in the end, I was overthinking it. He left that night, without even trying to see me. The next day, Zhao Ruo greeted me with a grin. Your father really is something. I could only shake my head. After she left, she suddenly turned serious. Have you made up your mind? 18. Zhao Ruo was asking whether I planned to stay in the palace or leave. Back in Yuhua Palace in my last life, when she spoke of other worlds, I was filled with longing. I had been brought into the palace as a child, later became Empress, and remained within these walls. By the time Gu Linen was able to travel on royal tours, our relationship had long since withered. We never traveled together. In truth, I'd never even left the capital. After hearing Zhao Ruo's stories of traveling far and wide, I developed the desire to see the world. I suddenly recalled what Gu Ling had told me before becoming a monk. Be careful. Zhao Ruo may grow too powerful. She might steal the Gu family's throne. He didn't understand. I never cared about that. I had no love for politics, no hunger for power. The Grand Empress Dowager had not chosen wrongly. I was nothing like Empress Xiao Zhao. I never wanted to rule. As for Zhao Ruo, she wasn't obsessed with power either. But she carried a heart for the people. And I truly believed, under her rule, life for the common folk would only grow better. I've made up my mind. I want to go out and see the world. She wasn't surprised by my answer. Then start on land first. In a few years, once I've finished building infrastructure, you can go overseas too. She carefully laid out my future plans. Watching her so focused and earnest, I couldn't help but laugh. How wonderful. This life is truly wonderful. The end.